Look, despite the fact I'm arguing against the boxing intellect across the table, I still believe that Daniel Dubois is the number 2 heavyweight in the world. He was on Fight Night on Saturday night. Let's have a listen to what he had to say himself.
What challenges does Joseph Parker bring you on February 22nd, Daniel?
Listen, he's a good challenge. He's fought everyone. He's been a world champion. But I'm just on a roll now, and I'm ready to get him out of my way and, smash him to pieces and do whatever it takes to win. I think I'm going to be too much, too strong, too hungry, and too fast. And, I just want to, deal with his challenges, I think, as I should.
You've got Joseph Parker now in front of you. And therefore, when you talk about what could happen off the back of a Joseph Parker win, it becomes realistic to get back in the ring straight away off the back of that with Alexander Usyk and challenge for undisputed status. I mean, that would be remarkable to do that in 2025.
Yeah, it's great. What a turnaround I've had the last year, really. But yeah, that would be the icing on the cake to go in there and take all the belts off of him, get through Parker, and that's what's next. I think that's what's next.
Johnny, I'm listening to the orthodoxy suggest to me that if Joseph Parker can take Daniel Dubois deep into the fight, he can potentially drown him in deep waters as the fight goes on. I personally think he's going to blast him out of there. With no disrespect to Joseph Parker, I think he's in great form, and I think he's a great fighter now. I think he's all the things that perhaps we made about him in the past observations. He didn't let his hands go since he's been with Andy Lee. All that's changed, and he's got really great victories under his belt in the last year or so. Zhilei Zhang, Deontay Wilder. Where are you on this fight? How do you think it's going to play out with the Dubois-Parker fight?
I think Parker is a clever boxer. Obviously a better boxer and a tougher boxer than Daniel Dubois. I think he'll weather the storm of because sometimes you get fighters who are really good at messing you about, really good at surviving, just boxing on the back foot, and I think he'll drag the fight out long. There's no way he's going to knock Daniel out. I'd be very surprised if he did, but I think he beats him on points.
But he got dropped twice by Zhilei Zhang. Mm-hmm. Daniel Dubois hits harder than Zhilei Zhang, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
And time's better.
Yeah. I know he does. No, Daniel Dubois does. Daniel Dubois, he can punch like a mule kicks. Yeah. I've seen him in the gym, and Don Charles is doing an amazing job with Daniel Dubois, and he's brought the best out in him, bringing the best out in him. Daniel Dubois he's got an underrated, unbelievable jab. Yeah. So, but Joseph Parker is schooled enough and smart enough and crafty enough to navigate his way around that. He needs a career best performance in this. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is an impossible ask for him. It's a very possible win for him.
But Daniel is going to land on him. I mean, and we saw Joe Joyce drop Joseph Parker and stop him. We've seen Zhilei Zhang, despite the fact that we give him a lot of credit to that fight, and Dillian White. Yeah. Whereas I think Dubois is so sharp and so quick and so powerful and so strong in his own belief now. I think he'll land on Parker.
You touched on it there, Simon. It's strong on his own belief, and that's what's different about Daniel Dubois right now. And that is credit to Don Charles and what he's been working with him on the psychological side of things. He works on it with him day to day in the gym. I see that up close. And Daniel's like a reborn fighter, and that's why you've got to say his favourite going into that fight. But Parker
do you worry that he's getting ahead of himself, Johnny?
No.
I think going in the ring against Usyk, Daniel was now going from being as quiet as a church mouse to singing like the choir and telling everyone what he is. I'm hungry.
That's a big plus for Daniel.
So with Daniel, they've taken the muzzle off you go. Yeah. Daniel's, and I'll always say even to this day, Daniel cannot think in the ring. He can remember, but he can't think. Right. When I say can't think, when something happens inside in mid-fight, he's got to be able to remember. Right, this is what you're doing. You look at the corner. They've got to chill in. Got to keep going forward no matter what. Really? Fighters instinctively know how to adjust, how to adapt. He's a great at remember, but he's not good at thinking in the ring. So if anything that he's not prepared for is happening, he's lost. He's lost. He's thinking, what shall I do? Look at the corner.
But I think the apprenticeship that he had with obviously fighting Alexander Usyk and going in there and Joe Joyce when the first loss that he had, you look at that and you go, he's taken that away and he's learned from that. Like I say, I see him up close in the gym and he's a different animal now to what he was even 6 months ago. And I think that's a massive plus for him. And I agree with you, Simon. I think, listen, Daniel Dubois could come out on top of all these heavyweights right now and stay there for a long time.
Self-belief is everything for Daniel Dubois. And the more he believes in himself, this style that he has, it suits a young man. And so he's capitalised on it now because he believes in it. But as soon as that bubble's burst, because he's getting to that crest, you to think, I can do this, it can be everybody. But as soon as someone finds a way to actually burst that bubble,
someone's
keep bursting.
Someone's kryptonite to him. Talking about young men, Moses Itauma. A lot of noise. I was interested, I listened to you in your observations of him, and you were a tad critical of him in the fight, I thought, against Dempsey McKean. I think you called it naive. And you weren't as gushing with praise as I thought you might be, because I mean, he cleaned out a fighter that had done 12 rounds, or near as damn it 12 rounds with Hrgović, and was just, built to be durable, and was cleaned out by Itauma in 1 round, less than 1 round.
When I say naive, naive in the risk he's taken in mid-fight. Sometimes I'll go to throw a shot and you think, wow, if he just doesn't know the danger of that shot. Naive, you know what, it's a compliment, because that naivety it makes him the fighter he is. I think potentially he will be at the top of the landscape of the heavyweight division, this young man here. And so right now he's going through a stage of naivety and he's getting away with it. And so when time comes and someone checks him on that, hopefully he's had enough experience to think, right, then I've learned from that lesson there. I love his naivety. It makes it
Is it any difference?
Makes him dangerous.
Is it any difference from the sort of lazy parallel that's drawn with him because of his style with Mike Tyson? Would you have said back in the day when you were watching Mike Tyson throwing bombs left, right and centre that he was naive?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Right.
And so, I think the styles are similar but different. But it's the mindset and the chances that you think, oh my God, you really have done that shot.
Yeah, but that's
it's like standing in front of someone and leading with a backhand, and you think you actually did that. It's something you don't do.
But that fighting with your heart on your sleeve like that and that risk taking is what makes you exciting, and that's why you compare it to a young Mike Tyson.
Absolutely.
You look in his early days, you think, wow, he's coming forward, he's letting those shots go,
chin in the air. That's right.
You're really taking that gamble, but that's all in experience, and I think that's why.
Do you think, Johnny, that he should be fast-tracked into a world title shot this year if it's available?
No, because that's how you ruin potential greatness. I think matchmaking is important in any fight.
Which Frank is brilliant at.
Exactly, and you've got to give that to Frank no matter what, because he's got to fight all shapes and sizes. A spoiler, tall, powerful, a boxer. He's got to get him all those, because when it counts and when you're up at the top, you've got to be prepared to fight everybody like that. So I think Frank's very good at ignoring the pressures of the public. And going at his own pace.
I had that conversation with Frank out in Saudi last time we were out there, actually, and he said exactly the same. It's not that I don't think he could beat an Anthony Joshua right now, but we beat him.
Not the right time.
And where does that leave us? He said, it leaves us right up there, and I want this kid, because we've got something very special.
But also for the kid himself, he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet.
No. Yeah. But I mean, this is one that I brought up, and I just thought, you know what? This is a fight I think we can make. And you're looking at like a Kubrat Pulev, WBA regular. I spoke to Kubrat out there actually as well. And he said, like, he's looking at these big fights and he go, well, if Moses is trying to crack these records of May the 19th, Mike Tyson's the youngest heavyweight champion, that qualifies him, surely. Kubrat Pulev is a good fight for
Matchmaking is everything, and don't be surprised if that's actually on the agenda. You get in there with these ex-fighters that have boxed your AJs and your Furies and put him in there to say, right.
I'd like to see him in, before we pivot off, I'd like to see him with someone like Otto Wallin, because I think he's a clever fighter. I think he's a sort of like James Bone Crusher Smith was to Mike Tyson. He's going to make the fight difficult for Itauma to operate the way he's been operating with other fighters. It'll be interesting, but I do think, like you, I think we've got a superstar in his hands, and I think it's important that he gets the background noise out of his ears, because every media station, everywhere he goes, a bit like Ben Whittaker, but for different reasons, are going, this kid's next world champion, this kid's next world champion, and I think it must be quite distracting. But that's the nature of the beast. Talking about weight classes and divisions, and one that's going to be obviously very close to your heart is the Cruiserweight division. I want to talk to you, because you're here, about Jai Opetaia and what you think of him as a fighter. Well, I've had him in the studio and sat with him. He's got that dead eye look across the table at you that tells you that if he doesn't like something, he's going to look at you in a certain way. But also, he's at a level that I think is one of the best cruiserweights I've ever seen, with all due respect to present company. And I'm interested to see what you think of him. Obviously, he's dismantled pretty much everyone he's been in with. And I think some of the levels that he's been in with, I think Jordan Thompson doesn't give you a true reflection. I think other fighters that have been in there, with all due respect to Jack Massey, I don't think they're at his level. So he looks like a Rolls Royce. He looks like it. But you know what a cruiserweight looks like. You know what they should be like.
What's
your view on it?
I think currently he's the best cruiserweight in the world. I think we because of the level of his opponents, you think, oh my God, this guy's outstanding. But then I can remember when he boxed, was it Maris Bradis? He boxed him twice. He boxed him twice. So and
a very similar outcome both times.
And that's what I'm saying. And so the shine, the buff, it had kind of come off towards the back end of it. I thought, this kid's not as good as we all think.
Would you have fancied it back in the day?
But he's actually very good. You know what? He'd be a complete and utter nightmare. And you would fancy it because this kid's on his toes. He's constantly making you work under pressure. He's constantly making work when he's not actually working. He's probably the cleverest out of all the cruiserweights that are out there right now. To me, he's top of the hill when it comes to the cruiserweight division. To step up to heavyweight, I don't think he can do that. I think he's probably too small for that. I know there was rumours of Usyk dropping down to fight.
No, that's nonsense, isn't it?
That's never happened. There's not enough money in
where do you think? I mean, obviously there's this big ideal in the cruiserweight division that you're going to unify. You've got Zerto Ramirez. He's got to have a mandatory against Dorticus. But when you look at that fight, I think you were not hugely, I think you were critical of Ramirez.
I was, without a doubt.
Despite the fact he beat Crispin and Smith for 11 rounds, you looked at it and went, well, he ain't that special.
It's not that special, but neither is Chris.
Right.
Chris is a nice kid.
Yeah.
And Chris, I think that was the softest touch to unify titles for Chris. And I thought, you've got this, man. Yeah. This guy's beatable. And Chris
in actually... the first round, it certainly looked like it,
and Chris actually give this guy a chance that he shouldn't have had. So Ramirez, all of a sudden, so don't get gassed. He will get absolutely caned. He will get absolutely caned by Opetaia because he's predictable. He warms into the fight. He fights like he doesn't want it, and all of a sudden he fancies it. Then all of a sudden he's a nightmare. Opetaia will have his number left, right, and centre. I think he's the best out in the lot of them.
Why do you say absolutely not for Jai Opetaia to step up from cruiserweight to heavyweight? Simply because of size? I mean, how much smaller is he than David Haye? How much smaller is he than Evander Holyfield? And obviously the most recent example being Alexander Usyk.
I get that, but it's styles and size, size and style. And that style that is a very active, energetic style. So if he's going to put the weight on to step up, he's not going to be able to maintain that style that he's got. Yeah. He's not going to be able to maintain it, so therefore he's got to adapt. So he's going to be a little more flat-footed, so therefore he's going to be easier to hit by the bigger guys. And you've got to look at the landscape that's around him. And so if the landscape around him is weak, you could say you could put him up there, but I think at heavyweight, I'd be surprised. I would be.
But he won't be in the land of the giants, though, will he? I mean, ultimately, if he steps up in a couple of years' time, 18 months' time, after he's unified this division, right? Fury will be gone probably.
Well, the next generation will be Moses Itauma coming through, and he's actually a small guy. So when you look at sizes and comparisons there, you go, well. Perhaps there's something.
It's the only way he gets paid.
Opetaia to do something at heavyweight.
Yeah, it's the only way he gets paid, isn't it?
Exactly. That's where the real money is, and that's where the real money. And he'll look at that, or he'll look at who's around, and he'll look at. Can you imagine putting him in with Daniel Dubois? You know what I mean? So his style is there, but the strength of natural strength of Daniel Dubois, or the unorthodox style of Bacola.
Yeah.
You'd think, would I really want to do that? So you can see where the limitations are. Let's see how he grows in the next few months.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.